A young man, after a few years of marriage, was murdered and dismembered by his wife, his father, and his sister. What on earth happened in this family? On September 25, 2010, a sanitation worker in Anning City was picking up garbage along the lake shore as usual when he saw a plastic bag floating under the water. He then fished up the plastic bag, but when he opened it, he found a human head inside. The frightened sanitation worker immediately called the police, and 10 minutes later, the police arrived at the scene. After investigation, it was confirmed that the head with fresh cutting marks on the neck belonged to an adult male, but the body was missing. Therefore, the police began searching the lake and surrounding areas to see if they could find the remaining body. After forensic examination, it was determined that the deceased was about 30 years old and had died about 3 to 10 days ago. The deceased's face had suffered multiple blunt force traumas, including fractures and distortions of the eyebrow and nasal bones. Additionally, due to a long time of immersion in water, the skull swelled and decomposed, making it impossible to identify the deceased based on the face. However, several stitches on the back of the head reminded a police officer of an incident record 4 days ago. At 3 a.m. on September 21st, a man named Chen Ronggang called the police and said he was injured in the head. The police quickly found Chen based on the address provided by him. At that time, there was blood all over his head, and he was reeking of alcohol. He told the police that he was injured by his friend while fishing with him by the river. The police first sent Chen to the hospital for treatment, and then took him back to the police station to understand the situation. But Chen was too drunk to tell what happened exactly, so he called his wife. A few minutes later, his sister and his wife came to the police station. His wife, Jiang Deying, told the police that Chen had fallen down and injured himself after drinking too much that night. Jiang said she should take him home to rest and come back to the police station to provide additional information when he sobered up. Strangely, they never came back after that. The police wondered if the deceased was Chen, whom they had taken to the hospital for stitches. Therefore, the police came to Chen's home to inquire. His wife, Jiang, said that Chen left home a few days ago and hadn't returned. She had no idea where he went. Her answer aroused the suspicion of the police because it was the Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival at that time, which was a very important festival. Usually in those days, the family would get together to celebrate. But Chen went out at this time, and there was no news from him for days. His wife seemed not worried at all, or didn't even try to reach him. This situation was very abnormal. The police further investigated and found that some of Chen's personal belongings, such as his wallet and ID, were still at home, unlike going out for a journey. Then the police asked Chen's neighbors and learned that he and his wife came to Anning City 3 years ago with their 3 children, and they were running a small motel here. Chen and his wife had a terrible relationship. They argued and fought a lot. Subsequently, the police checked Chen's treatment records at the hospital and found that he had 3 stitches on his head at the time, and there were also 3 stitches on the deceased's head. Moreover, their wound locations matched. Then, under the pretext of investigating missing persons, the police collected blood samples from Chen's son and compared them with DNA extracted from the head of the deceased. The comparison results confirmed that the deceased was indeed Chen. So, the police searched Chen's home immediately and found blood stains on the wall in his house. After testing, it was determined that this blood stain belonged to Chen. This indicated that Chen was likely to be dismembered after being murdered at home. Obviously, his wife Jiang was the most suspected. The police took Jiang to the police station and interrogated her. Soon after, she confessed everything. But what she said made the police unable to believe, because Jiang said that it was Chen's father, also her father-in-law, who killed Chen. At first, Jiang, Chen's father, and Chen's sister Hui offered Hui's boyfriend Hua to kill Chen with a total of 6,000 yuan. However, it failed the first time. Then later, Chen's father and Hua killed Chen together eventually. So the police began to find the other 3 people. On September 26th, Chen's sister Hui and Hua were arrested. Chen's father, who had fled to another city, returned to Anning City to turn himself in on the same day. During the interrogation, they all confessed to the crime of killing Chen. Chen's father identified the scene of the murder and assisted the police in finding the remaining body parts. But why did they work together to kill their family like this? Chen's father, Ji Kui, 55 years old, ran a hotel in his hometown and was making bank. He and his wife had 3 children. Chen was the youngest and the only son. From the day Chen was born, Ji Kui and his wife spoiled him, always said yes to him, and never blamed him for any trouble he caused. Since they loved Chen so much, why did Ji Kui kill him? Chen's wife, Jiang, said it was all because of her.
我说来让我晓得我一个人，只有我一个人来，他那边害他家家人以后。
那我儿媳妇们觉得良心可以，人家做事踏实，对这个家庭是负责的。我家全家几辈人老老小小就是可怜的这个儿媳妇了，爱她一嫁她一生人，没得一天好日过。
When Chen was 14 years old, he met Jiang, who was 16 years old and making a living by selling vegetables on the street. The two quickly got together, and Jiang moved in with Chen. 2 months later, Jiang was pregnant, but neither of them was old enough to get married legally, so they couldn't register their marriage, but only held a small ceremony attended by family members. Shortly after the birth of their first child, Chen left home to work in another city. During this period, he often drank and went whoring with his co-workers. A few years later, Chen quit the job and returned home. However, after returning home, Chen seemed to have changed to a different person. He was very irritable and didn't work. He drank, gambled, and slept with different women. He splurged every day, and his father always paid for his debts. Not only that, Chen often beat his wife. Sometimes he tied her to the bed and beat her. Sometimes he burned her with a soldering iron. His wife cried and begged him to stop, but it never worked, and Chen was completely indifferent. For the violence suffered by Jiang, she had no one to talk to. Her parents-in-law were both heartbroken but helpless, and she could only swallow the pain by herself. Jiang's father died when she was 2 years old, and her mother later remarried and left her. She never heard from her mother ever since. She was raised by her 70-year-old grandfather. Since she married Chen, Chen's parents had loved her very much and treated her like their own daughter, which made Jiang, who had no parents since childhood, very grateful and finally felt the warmth of a family. So, she endured Chen's villainies and had 2 more children with Chen in the next few years. In 2007, due to Chen's extravagance, Ji Kui had to sell the hotel to repay his debts. Later, Ji Kui brought his wife, his daughter Hui, and his son's family to Anning City to rent a house and opened a small motel there. After coming from hometown to Anning City, Chen still indulged in gambling, drinking, whoring around. Every time he was short of money, he asked his father for it. When he was in a bad mood, he beat his wife. What's worse, once, while having sex with another woman, he deliberately called his wife and let her listen to how they did it. Jiang suffered physical and mental torture every day. She wanted a divorce, but Chen didn't agree unless the custody of the 3 children belonged to him. But Jiang knew there was no way that Chen, an irresponsible father, could raise 3 children alone, so she gave up the idea of getting a divorce. When Ji Kui scolded Chen for what he did to Jiang, Chen would even beat Ji Kui. Once, Chen broke Ji Kui's rib. There were a couple of times that Chen chased after Ji Kui with a knife or a brick, saying he wanted to kill him. The family had called the police several times because of this, and Chen would be temporarily detained, but this didn't completely solve the problem. In desperation, in order to get away from Chen, Ji Kui and his wife handed over the motel to Jiang to manage, and they moved to a nearby city and opened a small motel again to make a living. But even so, they didn't completely get rid of Chen. Chen still often asked his parents for money because of gambling debts. The originally rich family was gradually broke because of Chen. In order to earn more money, Ji Kui found a job on the construction site. Unexpectedly, Chen wanted to kill his father to cheat for compensation. Chen tried to poison Ji Kui several times, but fortunately, Ji Kui found out. Chen's behaviors made Ji Kui completely lose hope in him. His beloved son not only beat him, but also wanted him to die. At this time, Ji Kui had a bold and terrible idea, which was to kill Chen.
但是这整个事业生病了，他们只有想这种办法，没得法了，自己过不去了。我这家庭，我就是死了一个蛋好了，我要顾到我自己家里几个娃娃，知道我想一棒棒的把打了自己打了，都老都把砍了的。
In August, Ji Kui, who had had enough, called his daughter-in-law Jiang and his daughter Hui to his home and told them the idea. After discussing, the three decided to hire Hui's boyfriend Hua to kill Chen for 6,000 yuan. Hua agreed. On the 21st, he asked Chen to go fishing by the river. When Chen wasn't paying attention, he hit Chen's head with a stone, but Chen only got injured and turned around and hit Hua. So Hua failed. Then Chen called the police. After this incident, Chen seemed to have realized that someone in his family wanted to kill him, so he threatened to kill all the people in his family in revenge. Ji Kui believed that Chen would really hurt his family, so he decided to get rid of him to protect his family and himself. On the night of the crime, after Chen was asleep, Ji Kui and Hua came to Chen's house. Jiang opened the door for them as agreed. The two men came to the bed and beat Chen with sticks. Soon, Chen stopped breathing. After confirming that Chen was dead, Ji Kui and Hua dismembered the body into 4 pieces. There are no words to describe how heartbroken Ji Kui was when he cut his son's body, the son he had doted on since the day he was born. Then Ji Kui rode a tricycle to the lake and threw the pieces of his son's body into the lake. To prevent the body from floating on the river, he added bricks to each bag. After the crime, Chen's mother sold the motel and returned to their hometown with her grandchildren. Jiang said she didn't regret killing her husband at all, but she felt sorry for her parents-in-law and her children. The way the 4 people murdered and dismembered Chen was brutal, but considering what Chen did and the fact he threatened the lives of his family, the court sentenced Ji Kui to 15 years in prison, Hua to 10 years in prison, and Jiang and Hui to 5 years in prison.